Hi guys, welcome to my channel. In this video, I'll be showing you how I made this bustier top with a stylish yoke. This pattern is suitable for all sizes of bust, which means it can be altered for both bigger bust and smaller bust. So you might want to stay to the end of this video, and also please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and also like this video. So let's get right into it. So we're going to be using two different prints of Ankara fabric. Here I have 1.5 yard each of this fabric. If you have 1 yard, you can go ahead and use it depending on your size. So remember, we're going to be cutting our fabric on fold, or you can go ahead and fold your pattern paper. So now the first thing we're going to do is to mark all our vertical measurements. There I marked 10 inches for the bust line, 14 inches for my under bust, 17 inches for my waist length, and then the length of my top, which is 21 inches. So I'm going to mark all the measurement across like this. So I'm going to go ahead and use my ruler to extend all the lines like so. So I'll go ahead and label the lines: the bust line, the under bust line, the waist line, and then the length of our top. So the next thing we want to do now is to mark my shoulder measurement divided by 2, which is 8. So I'm going to mark it like so. On that point, I'll come down by 1 inch for the shoulder slope, and then for the armhole depth, I'm going to come down by 8 inches. So I'm going to go ahead and extend the line like so. So that will serve as our chest line. I'm also going to go ahead to use my ruler to extend my armhole depth line like so. Now I'm going to mark the neck depth, which is 3 inches. So I'm going to go ahead and use my ruler to connect my shoulder slope like so. So I'm going to go ahead and measure what I have on my armhole depth, that's 8 inches. So I'm going to mark the midpoint, which is 4 inches. So on that point, I'm going to go in by half an inch. So on the chest line, I'm going to mark my bust measurement divided by 4, like so. So now I'm just going to go ahead and use my French curve to draw the armhole curve like so. Now I'm going to mark my bust band measurement, which is my nipple to nipple divided by 2. So for me, I'll be using 4 inches. So I'll mark 4 inches on the chest line, on the bust line, on the under bust line, on the waistline, and also on the hip line, or let's say the end of the top. So now I'm just going to use my ruler to connect all the points to form a straight line. So I'm going to measure what we have on the shoulder slope and mark the midpoint. So I'm going to mark the midpoint. I'm going to use my ruler to connect that midpoint to my bust point like so. So on the part going towards the middle on the hip line, I'm going to mark 1 inches like so. If you have a smaller bust, you can go ahead and mark 0.75 inch. So I'm going to mark 1 inch for me, also on the waistline and the under bust line. So I'm going to go ahead and use my ruler to connect it like so. So on the part going towards the side, I'm also going to mark 1.5 inches. Remember, if you have a smaller bust, you can just use 1.25 inch. So I'm just going to use my ruler to connect it like so. Now on the bust line, we're going to come down by 1 inch. So I'm just going to use my French curve to connect all the points like so. We came down by 1 inch on the bust line. To avoid the bust point being too pointy, So from the chest line, I'm going to go up by 3 inches. Note, if you have a smaller bust or you want your chest to be more revealing, you can go up by about 1 inch or 2 inches. But for me, I'm going up by 3 inches. So now I'm going to mark that 3 inches across like so. And then I'm going to use my ruler to extend the line like so. So on that line, I'm going to mark 1 inch in and 1 inch out like so. So I'm just going to use my French curve to connect those points to the bust point. I'm also going to go ahead and connect the other points like so. So for the neck depth, I'm going to mark in 2.5 inches for the neck depth. So I'm just going to use my French curve to connect or to draw the neck shape. So on the chest line, I'm going to mark my bust measurement divided by 4, like I've already done. And I'm also going to measure what we have at that point, which was about 1 inch. So I'm going to go ahead and replace it. And then I'm going to add 1.5 inches for our sewing allowance. So on the under bust line, I'm going to mark my under bust measurement divided by 4. Then I'm going to measure what we have at that point, which is 2.5 inches, then replace it. And then I'm going to add 1.5 inches sewing allowance. So going to mark my waist measurement divided by 4, then add the 2.5 inches at that point. And then I'm going to add 1.5 inch sewing allowance. On the hip line, I'm going to mark my hip measurement divided by 4. Like so. Then I'm also going to replace what we have there, which is 2.5 inches, and then I'm going to add 1.5 inches for my sewing allowance. So now I'm just going to go ahead and use my ruler to connect all the points like so to form my body shape. So to avoid our yoke being too wide, we're going to do what we call yoke tightening. So I'm just going to use my ruler to connect the yoke area like so. Just please pay attention to what I'm doing. So the points I'm marking out are those places that will be cut out, those places that are not needed. So from the waistline, I'm going to go up by about 3 inches like so. And on that point, I'm going to go in by 2 inches. So I'm just going to use my ruler to connect the point, to rule a straight line to that point. This is because the back is going to be shorter than the front, so the back and the front side has to be equal. So now I'm just going to use my curve to draw a basque shape like so. So that's all for the drafting of the front pattern. So now I'm just going to go ahead and cut it out. So please pay attention to how I'm cutting out the yoke area, because the back and the front shoulder area has to be equal. This is what the front looks like. So for the yoke, I'm gonna ahead to cut it completely like so. So now I'm going to go ahead and use my tape to join it together like so. I'm also going to go ahead and join the other shoulder area like so. So on the left side, I'm going to go in by 2 inches. You can decide to go in by 1.5 inches on both sides, but here I used 2, and then on the right side I went in by 1.5 inches. So on that right side I went up by 4 inches like so. I'm going to use my ruler to draw a straight line upward like so. So I'm just going to connect that area with my curve like so. So I'm going to go ahead and cut that part out. So this is what our front pattern is looking like. For the back, I'm going ahead to draft our basic back pattern just like we did for the front. The only difference is the neck depth is 1.5 inches, and then I added 1.5 inches for our zipper allowance. I'm going ahead to mark my hip line, my waistline, my bust line, and my chest line. Now we're going to go ahead and mark our dart intake. So starting from the zipper line, I'm going to mark my bust band measurement, which is 4 inches. I'm also going to mark it on the hip line and also on the bust line. So I'm going to go ahead and use my ruler to connect it in a straight line like so. So on the waistline, I'm going to go in and out by 1/2 inch like so. Then I'm going to use my ruler to connect it to the post point like so. I'm also going to connect it to the hip line like so. So on the chest line, I'm going to go ahead and mark my bust measurement divided by 4, and then I added 1.5 inches for my sewing allowance. On the waistline, I marked my waist divided by 4, and then I added 1 inch for the dart intake and then 1.5 inches for sewing allowance. On the hip line, I added my hip measurement divided by 4, and then I added 1.5 inches sewing allowance. So I'm going to go ahead and use my ruler to connect all the points to form our body measurement. Remember, all our measurement is starting from the zipper allowance line. So just like we did at the front, on the hip line I'm going to go up by 3 inches. So I'm just going to use my ruler to draw a straight line across. So the back is going to be shorter than the front. So on the waistline, I'm going to go in on the zipper area by 0.75 inch, and then I'm going to use my ruler to connect from that point to the bust line area, and then I'm also going to connect it to the hip line area. This is to avoid zip bulge. Now we'll go ahead and draft the back yoke. So starting from the zipper line, I'm going to go in by 4 inches. So from the neck, I'm going to come down by 1 inch. So I'm just going to connect it like so. So using my French curve, I'm going to connect that part like so. So at that point, I'm going to attach my hook. So I'll go ahead and cut it out. So the zipper is not needed for the yoke area, so I'm going to go ahead and cut it out like so. So I'm also going to go ahead and cut out that part from the back pattern to avoid zip bulge. So I'll be using this print for the bodice. I've gone ahead to place my fabric on fold. So the center front is going to be at the folded part of the fabric. So now I'm just going to go ahead and add my allowances around this pattern. So I'm going to go ahead and add half an inch allowance to the side like so, and also at the hem of the top. So I'm going to add extra half inch at the upper part of the center front, because when you join the center front at the side front, sometimes the center front usually becomes shorter. So that's 1 inch at the upper part of the center front like so. So now for the side front, I'm just going to go ahead and add half inches around it like so. So sewing allowance has been added to the pattern paper already, and also the armhole does not need any allowance. So I'm just going to go ahead and cut out the front pattern now. I've also gone ahead to cut out the back pattern. I added half an inch at the upper and the lower part. So this is the print we'll be using for the yoke. So I've also gone ahead to cut out my yoke. I added half an inch allowance around all the yoke area except the armhole area. So this is all the front and back pieces after cutting them out. I've also gone ahead to cut out my lining piece and also my stay for all the pieces. I also cut out lining for the yoke. So that's all for the drafting tutorial. In my next video, I'll show you the complete sewing process.